This is James with WSTrades.com. I want to provide an update on ticker NVOS, or Novo Integrated Sciences. So I saw this thing was trending, decided to take a look, and no surprise it's trending as they had a 53.57% rip on Friday. So big move here, and this thing actually started making big moves on August 15th. So you can see here on the 15th they had a gap up and a huge pump, another gap up and a huge pump, big move down, big move up, big move down. So this thing's been making big swings. It's been very volatile to the upside and the downside here since about mid-August. And I was looking through some of their news stories, and they released this story here talking about a joint venture for an agricultural project in Kenya. And it says that the Kenya-centric agricultural project with finalized and executed uptake contracts for food-based agricultural goods on up to 9 million hectares with potential revenue up to 350 million. So it says the joint venture agreement, which has an initial term of 30 years, provides for the annual distribution of net profits. So 75% would go to F7 and 25% would go to Novo. So, you can see there potential revenue numbers there. So that would be the high end at 350 million. So let's come in and take a look at what's going on with Novo's financial statements here and kind of see how that could make an impact. So if we come in here to the income statement and we look at the annual income statement, you can see total revenues have been growing. So if you see the quarter ended August 31st, 2020, 7.8 million in total revenue. The next year, 9.3 million in total revenue. The next year, 11.7 million in total revenue. If you look at the last 12 months, 22.5 million in revenue. So they do have revenue growing, but you can also see cost of revenue growing right along with it, right? It's growing a little slower though. As you can see, cost of revenue over the last 12 months, 16.7 million, with total revenue being 22.5. So, the cost for the revenue is not growing as quickly as the revenue is growing. But, if we look at that 350 million number, and 25% of that goes to Novo, that could make a significant impact here. But what has that done for earnings? So if you come in and look at the earnings here, net income common stockholders, well, the first year, they lost 4.9 million in earnings. The next year, a little better, still losing, but a little bit better at 4.4 million. And then 2022 was really brutal, losing 32.8 million. And then the last 12 months, it has been trending in a little bit of a better direction, but still losing 12.3 million. So you can see that the revenue has slightly been growing, but that has not really translated to any profitability here when we look at the earnings. Let's look at the quarterly just to kind of see what's going on. And total revenues kind of up. It's all up and down. It's all over the place. You can see the quarter ending August 31st, 2022, they lost 8.1 million, or their total revenue was negative 8.1 million, then a positive 3.4. It went down to 2.5, back up to 3.2. But if you look at the trailing 12 months, that still puts them at 22.5. And then the earnings, you can kind of see that they are trending in the right direction, at least on the quarterly. This was a big negative number here, August 2022 at negative 22.4 million. A big jump down to negative 3.9 million, a little bit of an increase here to negative 4.6, but then this number is a lot closer to zero here. So this is one of their best quarters yet, trying to track towards that break even on earnings per share. Let's take a look at the cash flow statement. Let's start out with the annual. So operating cash flow, you can see is growing, and it's going in the wrong direction. August 2020, they had operating cash flow of negative 441,000. That grew to negative $1 million. Big jump to negative 5.8 million, and then the last 12 months is negative 7.3 million. So that operating cash flow is definitely going in the wrong direction on the annual. Let's take a look here at the quarterly, and it's kind of up and down. You had operating cash flow in the positive of 675,000. But then the last three quarters have been negative. We had negative 278,000, negative 878, negative 857. So pretty rough on the quarterly here as far as the cash flow goes for operations. And then free cash flow is pretty much the same thing. You've got August 2022, a positive free cash flow here of 676,000. But then we got the negative 278, 878, 876. So pretty shaky here when you look at the cash flow statement. On the quarterly, let's look at the balance sheet real quick. So they do have more assets than liabilities, and if we look at the annual here, you can see that it's kind of shaky. They had 35.3 million in assets 2020. That increased to 61.9, but then it dropped off down to 40.8. If we look at the liabilities, they had 5.8 million in 2020, rose to 18.1 million. But that's not that bad considering they jumped their assets to 61.5. And then between 2021 and 2022, you can see they've kept their liabilities about the same. So let's look at the quarterly here. And yeah, you can see assets are actually shrinking on the quarterly. So August 31st, 2022, the end of that quarter, they had 40.8 million in total assets, dropping to 37 million, dropping to 36 million, dropping to 35 million. And liabilities kind of coming down as well, as they had 18.8 million down to 17 million, and then the last 2 quarters have been pretty flat with 9.5 million and 9.4 million. So yeah, just kind of taking a look at the annual statements, the quarterly statements, their earnings, their cash flow. This is not something that I would invest in. You know, this agricultural project that they're going to get in, you know, maybe that can kind of help them out a little bit. Their earnings are trekking towards zero. So we'll kind of see when we look at the income statement and we go back to the quarterly here, you know, will this project help them get to finally maybe even a break even? You know, on the EPS, that would be a good sign. But yeah, for me, just kind of looking at their cash flow, their operating cash flow, their free cash flow, and kind of how their earnings have been going, this is just not something that I would invest in. But I'll continue to keep you updated here on ticker NVOS, or Novo Integrated Sciences. Please like this video. Please also subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed. Hit that notification bell. Appreciate you for taking the time to watch this. Talk to you soon.